It is funky though.
Hello, and welcome to the 10th episode. We are in double digits, baby.
Ooh, double digits.
The 10th episode
97.
of Weekly Inkblot.
Oh, you got it. You got it.
Yeah, I did it.
Oh, shit. Or poop. I forgot to put on my thing. Oh,
so,
wait.
so we are talking about borderline personality disorder tonight.
Which I know a lot about.
Yes. Which is also commonly referred to as BPD. Um, which I know sometimes that gets a little confused in like the circles, whether you're talking about bipolar or borderline, but they are very, very, very different disorders.
Very.
They have some similarities, but
Mood swings and impulsivity problems,
yep,
mainly. There's no mania with borderline personality disorder. The mood swings from about a little bit below baseline to way down to suicidal. Um, in fact, 1 in 10 people diagnosed with this illness successfully complete suicide. That is not including attempts where the person survives. So, yeah, 10%. It is also more common to see than bipolar or schizophrenia combined, but nobody knows anything. So, some fun facts.
yeah,
About 3% of the population has it.
wow,
And there's also the dominantly we see women diagnosed with it because men are more susceptible to receiving the antisocial or the other personality disorder that starts with an A. I can't remember right now. But yeah, so men are more likely to be diagnosed with a more aggressive disorder because they tend to be more aggressive and less social about it. And so I think it's just and men are also, of course, with anything, there's the fact that men are less likely to say that they have a problem.
hmm and I know we talk about some of the pop culture stuff. The first time I ever heard of borderline was the in the movie Girl Interrupted. I
Hmm.
think that yeah, it's
Which was a terrible representation. That movie does not go into
yeah,
anything about it.
it doesn't really give you much in the way of what the disorder actually is versus her thoughts on the bullshit reasons that they give it to her. But one of the things she does bring up is the fact that, because she is looser about her sexuality and goes around and enjoys the company of men and whatnot. That's one of the big reasons why she was
Because one of
um,
in the
diagnosed.
right in one of the criteria, it's the impulse thing.
Mm,
Specifically, some of the things they list are excessive spending, reckless driving, and um, like kind of impulsive sex.
yeah, I have written down here overspending, overeating, acting out sexually, and abusing drugs.
Yes, I mean there's you can be have impulsive issues with anything you want, really. But those
Yeah.
are those are some prime examples that they see more than anything.
I wanted to start out by because there are a good number of personality disorders.
Yes.
I don't know quite as much about the others, but
I know
there
something.
is a multitude of them. And so I wanted to start off by what is a personality disorder? Like, how is a personality disorder different from something like depression or bipolar disorder? Um, and
Because you do have to meet the criteria for just straight personality disorder before you can meet the criteria for any other.
yes, you do. They have a very specific criteria uh, in order to do that.
One of them is
Webs,
acting outside of your cultural norms.
Webster categorizes it as a deeply ingrained and maladaptive pattern of behavior of a specified kind, typically manifested by adolescence and causing It manifests in adolescence, and it causing long-term difficulties in personal relationships or in functioning in society. And Mayo Clinic said it is a type of mental illness in which you have trouble perceiving and relating to situations and to people, including yourself. There are many specified types of personality disorders. In general, having a personality disorder means you have a rigid and unhealthy pattern of thinking and behaving, no matter what the situation. This leads to significant problems and limitations in relationships, social encounters, work, and school. In some cases, you may not realize that you have a personality disorder because your way of thinking and behaving seems natural to you, and you may blame others for the challenges you face.
Mm.
And the reason I wanted to do the whole, when I was reading through the Mayo one, I wanted to do the whole definition they gave because, unfortunately, with personality disorders and especially with borderline, a lot of people with borderline take the extreme defensive stance.
Mm.
And like my friend's mom is borderline, and she'd never admit to that.
No.
It's not her problem. It's not that she has something wrong with her. It's that other people are out to get her, and other people are out to ruin her life and ruin her relationships, and everybody is out to get her.
Mm. And that kind of messes with me sometimes because one criterion or whatever of BPD is paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had situations, as a lot of people that are in the mental health thing, a lot of mentally ill people, we tend to get into dangerous situations. We tend to get into less than ideal situations. So I have gotten into groups of people that mistreated me because I would take it, basically. And, and then I'm sitting there wondering, like, is this me causing this? But the thing with me, too, that I think I should know is that I am not a typical borderline because I was, even before I was diagnosed, I was kind of like, there's something wrong with me. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety and then bipolar, which I just called complete bullshit on. And, so
yeah, you don't have the manic spikes.
Right. And I knew something was up. I knew something was wrong, and I knew my mother had committed suicide, so I was like, okay, there's probably a good chance there's something awfully wrong with me, especially being that, I'm feeling all this stuff and behaving in these ways, and it's like, I'm behaving in ways that that ain't me. But I was just completely like, okay, just tell me what it is so I can figure it out and beat its ass. So when I discovered some papers that, I think I explained this in a prior episode, I found some papers that my mom had gone to the hospital to find out what the hell was wrong with her because she thought she was going insane. And it turned out she was pregnant with me. And, but I found those papers and I saw borderline personality disorder. And this was within a month or two after my bipolar diagnosis, which I had already realized that I don't get manic, so that's kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, oh, what's this? And I looked it up on WebMD, and I just read the symptoms, and I'm just like, oh, shit, like, that's what's going on. So I was just like, I'm a person that I'm very mindful of the things that I say and do, and how I place myself in relation to the world and others, which is not very typical for somebody with a personality disorder, but that's just the way I am. I'm okay with admitting that I'm messed up, for lack of a better term, that I can't come up with off the top of my head right now, but I'm just fine with it. And so I've used, basically I've just read every book on the subject that I've been able to get my hands on, and I've educated myself enough that I have pretty fair control over my symptoms, and when I don't, I know what's going on, and I can explain it to the person that is affected by whatever I'm doing. But yeah, for the most part, people with borderline personality disorder, a lot of psychiatrists will not tell the person what they're diagnosed with, but for fear of the person like completely freaking out. But
Which
yeah,
is too
I'm just
bad
like,
because so many people could get the help and actually be able to get to a
right.
point where they're living a good life, but
Yeah, and it's an issue of like, people just need to understand. Like the people around me, like I'm just like I'm very forward about it. I mean, you know this. I'm just like,
yeah,
yeah, I have this, and I'm sorry for whatever happens, but I will do my best to mitigate any issues that arise. Because that's all I can do. Because I can know all this stuff, I can know I do this, but it doesn't make it not happen. And that's
right.
kind of the shittiest part about all of it. But, I can take responsibility. It's my actions, it's my behavior, whether or not, in dialectical behavioral therapy, they tell you that just one of the main points is it's not your fault that you are this way, but it is your responsibility to do something about it and control yourself. So I
Yes.
do whatever I can to do that. And, people with borderline personality disorder usually cannot hold a relationship. I can do that because I'm just like, okay, I messed up. That's fine. And where can we go from here? Because we can't undo what happened.
Yeah, and most borderlines they don't the they
Well,
don't want to admit or
yeah,
they don't believe it
right.
that
And
they had something to do with the situation.
this reminds me of a conversation I had last night. A good example, I think, of this is women with PMS. When we get pissy, and the dude's like, "Do you have PMS?" It's like, "Hell no! What the hell's wrong with you? Like, what's your deal?" Like, I'm completely rightfully upset. But you know
Hmm.
what? A week later, I'll start my period, and it's like, "Oh, I really was pissed because of PMS." But I really, really did not believe that. I was just like, "You're being an asshole." But no,
Yeah.
that's not it. I had PMS, and like that happens. But I mean, there's no shame in it because I mean, everybody gets pissed off when they have a bunch of hormones like cascading through their head. Like why are teenagers so weird? It,
Right.
and just the same on the same coin, borderline, we can't do much about it, and it sucks. But and it really seems like we are rightfully upset. It seems like this total psychotic breakdown where I mean, not me, but some borderlines will self mutilate and break shit
Hmm.
and just do all kinds of stuff. Like some of them, like since we have the kind of psychosis thing going on, there have been times when a borderline will just disappear for a few days and then they'll just like turn up somewhere and they're just like, "How did I get here?"
Hmm.
And but it happens. It happens, and the only thing you can really do about it is take responsibility. And the more you take responsibility, the more you become self-aware, and the closer you get to recovery.
Hmm. I mean, they do use some of the. I think it's mainly antidepressants they use on this particular one because it's not like where bipolar a lot of it like they have lithium as kind of their specific medication for it.
Right.
Personality disorders don't work in quite the same way, so we have to use the tools in which we have already
Mhm.
to try to I think doctors really try to combat symptoms
Well,
versus
the
fixing
thing
it
is,
sometimes.
the thing is, you can effectively treat bipolar with meds alone. Therapy would help a lot,
Yeah.
but you can combat it with just meds. Now, like on with borderlines, you can never, ever, 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 ever just treat it with meds. You
Yeah.
can, however, treat it with therapy alone and no meds. So that's just another difference between
Which is
bipolar and
the
borderline.
general direction in which you're going is
Right.
as
Yeah,
few
I
meds as
don't think that.
possible.
I don't see
Hmm.
the point because I have the mental fortitude to. I'm a juggernaut. I proved that earlier today, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
Ash has the biggest set of balls. Although, what is it that Betty White said? Like, don't want a set of
yeah,
balls
you shouldn't. You
because
shouldn't. You should like we talk about how people that are brave have
have,
big balls and people that
yeah.
are weak we call pussies. But Betty White says we should call strong people pussies because a pussy can really take a beating.
Yep. Now,
So yeah.
one of the books that I have that I was using for this week, Ash actually is the one that turned me on to it, is New
Yep.
Hope, borderline personality disorder, because for me it's that my sister has this, and I wouldn't I would be upset if I told Ash that like with my fibro and all of that, like if she weren't to do any like research and understanding of the disorder, then when something happens and it's like, I told you this already,
Yeah.
like we shouldn't be having this conversation of what the fuck just happened.
Yeah,
We
and I
should.
run into that too because I warn people, and then they're just like, "Oh, what's your problem?" And I'm like, "Dude, I told you. I don't know. I don't know what you want." But yeah, like that's a really good book. That's the first one I got when I was
Mm,
diagnosed, or when I figured it out. Really, I got diagnosed later, but I bought the book first, and I'm just like, "This is me." It was weird. I would say like it's like someone was following me around taking notes, and then turn the notes into a book, and that's my life. And it's awful, but kind of also reassuring because it's like, okay, I'm not the only one that does this shit.
and
It's
you're not going completely crazy.
no, no. And another cool thing about that, the reason I bought that book first, kind of on an off topic thing, I bought it because it's called New Hope and I like Star Wars. And also because it is published by Prima, which some people may know is the publishing company that does strategy guides for video games. So I call that my strategy guide.
Nice.
And it's a damn good one too because it's got like bullet points. It's broken down into like sections and like really easy to kind of reference. It's a good reference guide. A lot of other books are just kind of chapter, chapter, chapter. Like if you
Yeah.
can't really focus on like a book, like a novel, it's not so good. But that
Well,
just
one
breaks it
thing
down.
I appreciate, especially about like chapter one, is that it gives you all of the criteria in list form,
Hmm.
and then it breaks each one down.
Right, I like that a
So
lot about it.
it's not like, with a lot of books that you have for bipolar, borderline depression, anxiety, anything, they generally bullet point it, and then for the ones that are a little bit tricky, they might talk about. But this one specifically talks about each one and what it means for like different individuals.
Hmm.
And because there is a very specific criteria for this. You have to meet for the DSM-4, which is the current one. 5 is not out yet, and I think we're still many months away. So even though they are changing some of it, we're still going by the 4th edition. It must include 5 or more of the following things.
Well, the
Makes
thing about the DSM, though, I want to take a quick thing to explain this. They were going to revamp the criteria for personality disorders and all that, but a few months ago they decided they're not going to. So we'll
Oh,
see
really?
what happens by the time they release it. But as of right now,
I
they're
know
just
that
leaving
they're
it as
changing.
is.
I know that they're changing a couple things, like when it comes to just the mental illness disorders in and of itself, because they wanted to like expand and shift the way they did some of it.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's not out yet, and we're not going to know until it's out.
Well, there was kind of an uproar in the borderline community too when they said that they were going to revamp that because specifically borderline because they wanted to change the name of it because it's kind of ambiguous. The border, as one writer says in Girl Interrupted, the borderline between what and what. Well,
You
actually,
know
Chris,
what? I actually one of the and I think it might be this book talks about that.
yes, it is that book. Um,
It's because it
when
it asks the question, why borderline?
right,
What the
and
fuck does that mean?
what it means is, I believe it was Freud that named it. Am I
Yep.
right? And he had the whole neurosis, psychosis thing, and he noticed that a specific group of patients didn't really fit into either neurosis or psychosis, but they also fit into both. So it's the borderline to answer that question. It's the borderline between neurosis and psychosis.
Yeah, because Freud divided how a patient functions into 3 levels. You
Mm.
have normal, you have neurotic, and you have
And
psychotic.
psychotic.
Neurotic is kind of like when you worry about little things a lot, and you like we joke about our dog is neurotic
Mm.
because like Daddy yells about something on the computer game, and she automatically thinks it's all her fault.
Right.
And that
And
is a
like,
very neurotic tendency.
and I think generally when somebody thinks of OCD tendencies, they're thinking of neurosis, like neurotic tendencies.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go into what people think of when they think psychotic, but
Yeah.
let me tell you, it's not Norman Bates. It's, I mean, the kind of psychosis that's most predominantly seen in borderlines is called dissociation, which just generally, like, don't don't mistake me, like, it can go past this. Like, it can go straight into holy shit, psycho, it can.
Yeah, it can.
And it
But
does. But, I mean,
most people,
generally, dissociative symptoms, it's kind of like, I mean, I experience this all the time. It's kind of like you're watching everything that's happening to you, and it kind of feels like you're in a movie. You're not really experiencing it. Maybe you're dreaming.
it's a disconnection from yourself and the events
And you
that
can't
are
really,
happening.
like, it's weird when it happens because you're sitting there and you're having a conversation with somebody, and it's like, I don't feel like I'm here, and I'm not really sure what I'm saying right now. And, like, it gets you into trouble because you don't, it's hard to take things seriously when you can't actually believe that they're happening.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's psychosis in a general borderline scale. It's not
Yeah.
like
And
stabbing people.
when Freud was talking about the two, like with psychosis, they considered that far beyond the reach of psychoanalysis, which is the type of therapy that he did.
Hmm.
You couldn't, like, back then, if someone was psychotic, there was no way of dealing with it.
Well,
And then they decided that there were some individuals who fit into the neurotic category, but they were also seeing some of the psychotic
mhm.
episodes with them, and they didn't fit well into either. It was kind of a mixture,
Mhm.
and it was Adolf Stern in 1938 that described. He was the first one to really kind of be like, um, to give it its name, because what he described what he called the borderline group of neuroses,
Mhm.
which meant that they were on the border between neurotic and psychotic.
Right. So the name just kind of stuck because I don't know what the hell else to call us.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't know what they, if they wanted to change it. I don't know what they'd change it to.
right. Something about cycling, I think.
Really?
Yeah. Like I'm I'm not entirely sure, so don't take my word for it.
Yeah.
And then okay. And then there's the theory that Marsha Linehan came up with, or Linehan, I don't know how you pronounce that. But she is, the godmother of borderline personality disorder. She was the one that kind of brought it into the limelight, and, well,
And the one who started the
the DBT.
DBT.
Yes.
Yes.
And she just came out with this a year and a half ago. She just came out and talked about her experiences, which was really interesting. She was just talking about how she had been, when she had been, meeting the criteria for borderline. And
Hmm.
she's better now. She went on to help people and make a big splash for people like me. But her theory in how it develops is called the biosocial theory, which I think I touched on a couple weeks ago, but we'll go
Yeah.
over it now for fun, shits and giggles. Um,
Well, this is the episode to do it.
uh-huh. Well, okay, so biosocial, that's biology biology and social aspects of your life that can cause this.
It's the big question of nature versus nurture.
Yeah, and it's both,
Hmm.
in my opinion. So, okay, what happens is you have a biological predisposition to be extremely emotionally sensitive. These kind of people cry at commercials, or I don't know, they see a dog look sad and all of a sudden they're sad. That happens to me all the time. Obviously, I have that. Okay. And I get sniffly at commercials. I can't watch The Walking Dead because it makes me sad because I'm like, oh my god, these people love these people and they have to see them as monsters and they have to shoot them and it's horrible. And I get upset and I can't watch that shit. And I love zombies and it sucks. Anyway, so that's the biological aspect. The social aspect it's not really like necessarily social related to other people. It's just it's more of an environmental thing. What happens is somebody is born with this biological predisposition to be that way. And then they experience significant trauma in their life. Like for me, it was my mom dying when I was 8. That was extremely traumatic, as I'm sure nobody can argue with that, you know? And then I was launched into basically nonstop crazy stuff until currently. And so for me, it was just, I was just extremely sensitive. I mean, I have papers from when I was in kindergarten and preschool that was just like, I was always freaking out. I was terrified of fire drills. I tried to run away from a fire drill one day because I just found out there was going to be one. And I was just like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. And I was terrified of fires. And like, I was just like, I was always terrified that my heart was going to stop breathing or beating, or I was going to stop breathing. If I couldn't get a hold of my mom, I would freak out. I would be like, she's dead, she's dead. And when that happened, oh man, you know? So I was just super sensitive. And then that got dropped on me. And the rest is history. And then, you know, I had an unstable environment growing up. And after a while, you know, I was diagnosed with depression when I was 8. And then it just got significantly, not necessarily worse, but definitely stranger. Like, I got like, you know, I have intense fears of abandonment, which is criteria 1, and we should probably talk about the actual symptoms at some point. It's been half an hour.
Yeah.
Criteria 1.
Yeah, there's so you have to meet 5 or more of these. Makes desperate attempts to avoid abandonment.
Real or imagined?
Yes. Has unstable and intense relationships, usually involving alternately idealizing then devaluing the other person. So basically you're going from like them on the pedestal to...
Yeah, that's something I have a hard time with.
Sense of self or self-image is chronically unstable. Acts on impulse in ways that can seem self-damaging, and as I said, I have the overspending, the overeating, acting out sexually, and abusing drugs. But you could do this with a lot of things.
Yeah, that's one similarity to bipolar disorder.
Makes frequent suicidal gestures or threats, or injures themselves.
I think that can also be in like, God, words. Suicidal ideation, when you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna kill myself, and everything will be fine, and like you really, really consider it, and it's kind of really hard sometimes to not do it, but I'm still here.
Yeah. Has a highly unstable mood, i.e., gets depressed, irritable, or anxious for brief periods.
And those are the mood swings.
Yeah.
It's also referred to affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood.
Yeah. Chronically experiences feelings of emptiness.
That's a difficult one to describe.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Is easily provoked to anger or rage. And then the final one that was in this book, under stress can become paranoid or experience dissociative symptoms, which we kind of explained what
That's
that means.
psychosis. Yeah. So as of now, at one point, I did have 9 of 9 symptoms.
Wow.
Never self-mutilated or anything, but I had the suicidal ideation out the ass.
Yeah.
Out the ass. I didn't attempt, but all out the ass. And now I'm down to 6, so that's great. And, you know, I have a much better handle on them now, because when it's happening, I might not know at the specific moment that it's happening that that's what's going on. But, you know, I come around, I take a break, I step away, and I'm like, oh, this isn't the situation. I'm just perceiving it differently from what it is. And then I can come back and say, hey, you know, I'm sorry about that. Like, and I explain it. I don't use an excuse. I don't believe that it excuses me. I can't undo what has happened. I can only say, look, here's what happened. And it's up to them to forgive me or not. It's completely out of my control. They don't have to take anything they don't want to, and that's fine. It sucks, but it's fine. But it happens.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's pretty amazing to have gone from like where at one point you have all of them, and now you're down by three, and even just one would be huge, but three of them, I mean, that's one third of them.
Well, for me, it took my mom. And I'm like, the buck stops here. I made a choice when I was 16 years old. Wait, I was diagnosed when I was 21. So 5 years before I got diagnosed, I thought to myself, look, my entire, like, this has taken my family away. Like, I grew up pretty much without a family because of this. And I grew up motherless. And, it just sucked. And I'm like, that's not happening. I'm gonna beat this, and that's that. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I want to give up, and I say, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, the point is the principle of the damn thing. This isn't taking me out. I'm better than this. Screw this, because I like to prove people wrong. This, like, this has nothing to do with any disorders. This is just my personality, my actual personality. I'm just like, I'm gonna prove you wrong because you said I can't. I can, because I'm stubborn, and it's gotten me places,
Yes,
and
it has.
I'm just like, no. And as soon as I got diagnosed, I'm like, all right, I got some work to do. And I got diagnosed, 4 years ago, and I'm still working. I'm still working hard. Sometimes I take little breaks, and I'm just like, all right, everything's gonna suck for a while, but I'm just gonna kind of sit with it and let it suck for a while, and then get back to work.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because sometimes it feels hopeless. Sometimes it's like, well, I don't really, it's scary, like when a woman has a mother who dies of breast cancer, nobody faults her for just constantly being like, oh my god, what if I have cancer,
Yeah.
because that's hereditary, and people know that, and it's a physical, real thing. Well, guess what? Borderline personality disorder is heavily hereditary, and it's real,
Hmm.
turns out. And they won't fault a woman for being freaked out about this. For me, they're just like, oh well, just pull yourself together. And it's like, they like, people minimize it, and it's not something they like to do. It's not something that they're doing consciously, and I get that. They can't understand. It's hard. I understand. Like, I'm insane sometimes. Sometimes I'm really freaking crazy, and everybody's just like, dude, what is your deal? And it's like, I'm freaking out, and then they're just like, oh, mind over matter, it'll be fine. Like, it's not a big deal. It's all a mindset. It's all in your head. And it's like, dude, it is a big deal. My mom died from this. She died. You don't just wake up one morning like, I'm going to kill myself. Well, some
No,
people
it
do.
it
Some people
takes
do.
it takes a while for you to really
No, it's well, in my experience,
to get
and
to the point where they actually do it. I mean, it
yeah,
has to be
well, yeah,
building for a while. You have to be thinking about it and being like, okay, what are my options? Because that's one of those big questions that they ask you when you go into like the mental health stuff and everything. They ask about if you are having any sort of suicidal ideation and whatnot. And if you are, the very first thing they ask you is, do you have a
a
plan?
plan. No. Because when I was suicidal for probably a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sit there and I would just like drop a pen on the floor and I'd be like, I need to die. I should probably just kill myself. And then I'd sit there and I'd think, okay, I could do it this way, I could do it that way, and then I would just think of all these reasons immediately. As soon as I think of one, I think of all these reasons. No, that's not how I want to do it. No, that's not how I want to do it. So then I just came to the conclusion. I was like, well, I don't really want to do any of this stuff. So I guess I don't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
But sitting there, like, I would think about it, and it was just like my favorite way to put it. Favorite, not really the word for this, but the way I put it most often is it was like a battering ram. Like, sometimes shit wanted to get in there, and I was like, no, no, thank you, you go
Mm-hmm.
away, because I'm not having it.
It's a good point to be at. I mean, if when my counselors ask me now if I have a plan, yeah, I do. I know exactly what I would do. Like there's no doubt in there at all.
But the thing
Um,
that's always pulled me back is when I think about how my mom's suicide affected everyone. It killed my dad. He died 15 years later, but it killed him.
hmm
Like, that's where he started to die. I lost both my parents the same night. It's just that he came home and she didn't. And my grandma's never really gotten over it. she's I couldn't talk to them, either of them, about it after it happened, and that's part of my problem because I had no one to talk to. Like,
Mhm.
it hurt them, and just um I lived with my uncle in Texas recently. When our first episode, I was in Texas,
Mhm.
so I've been back for, I guess, 9, 10 weeks now,
Yep.
and talking to him, like, it affected his life. Like, her death affected so many people. She did not realize how important she was. She just didn't get it. She was just like, oh, you don't need, like, my dad was with her when it happened, and he told me uh, bits and pieces of what was said. And it was just kind of like, you don't need me, like, I'm just a pain in everyone's ass. I'm a burden, and no, that wasn't the case. If, we all still love her, we all still want her here, but she's not, and she hasn't been for, it'll be 18 years this year. And it's just, I think about that, like, every time I think about, taking myself out, I'm like, but it would kill so many people. There were so many people at her funeral. Like, it destroys people. And I had a friend commit suicide when I was 18, and it's like, why, dude? Why? Because if my mom had held on a few more years, there was so much more for BPD. If she had just held on, and it's like, there's breakthroughs all the time in science and health and medical and everything, and these people do this, and it's like, dude, if you had just held on, it would be okay, man. Like, it's like they say, permanent solution to a temporary problem. That is exactly what it is, because
Yes, it
you
is.
can feel you can feel from the bottom of your heart that this is it and there's no point in going on. But if you hold on for, like, uh, a week, 2 days, it's probably gonna blow over, man. Like, it's fine. You're fine. you
Mhm.
know we all go through these. You and I both go through these things.
Oh yeah.
I'm very quiet about it when it happens, but I go through it, and it's like, because the reason I'm quiet about it is because I know I'm not going to do it. There's no point in freaking people out, like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna. Like, it's fine. I'll be fine. I'll be here. I'll be here until something else takes me out. And it's not going to be me, because for me, failure is not an option. Like, I have a mission in life, and it's to beat this thing's ass and take it on and share everything I know with everyone I can. And that's what I've been doing. And that's part of what's gotten me better, just
Mhm.
being that person that has that story and helps people with their lives. That's all I want to do, like,
It's one of the reasons why we need to, so badly for this stigma on mental health and all of the issues to be broken, because part of the reason we have so many problems with mental illness is that we keep that stigma there, and people, it's not like cancer where you can be like, or almost any other type of illness where, it can't be pointed at you. Any other illness, as Mitch Hedberg would say, with any other illness, it sounds wrong. Like the thing, like he uses alcoholism as his thing, but damn it, Otto, you have alcoholism, or you're an alcoholic. Damn it, Otto, you have lupus. One of
yeah,
these two doesn't sound right.
right. No, neither of them sounds right, because
Well,
the thing with mental illness, and like I said, borderline is pretty fucking up there as far as statistics and suicide.
mm,
It has a mortality rate. So I don't know what the hell people have an issue with, because it has a definite mortality rate. So why don't we take it as seriously as anything else that has a mortality rate? Because we take texting and driving seriously.
yeah.
Like, you text and drive, like, you get pulled over, and I don't know what they do, but it's not good. And,
Mm,
they take it seriously. And people are like, oh, don't text and drive. Don't drink and drive, because it's got a mortality rate, and people worry about it. But as soon as you have a mental illness, it's like, dude, just buck up. Well, dude, fuck yourself. Pardon my French. It's definitely French. But, like, this is this is my issue. If you can't take it seriously, get out. There's
mm,
the door. I'm actually pointing at a door right now. And, like, just stop. Just stop for a minute and think. Maybe this person is in pain. Like, you go to a person's bedside, like, and they have cancer, and you're just like, oh, poor you. And you go to a person's bedtime in or bedside in a mental hospital, and you're just like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, dude, what
right.
is your deal? Do you not care?
It's such a different reaction to
Like, it's
something that
Right. Imagine your brain turning on itself. We're all so scared of zombies. It's the same damn thing.
Hmm.
Your brain just turns on you, and all of a sudden you can't control it. You want brains, or no, not brains, but I mean, you want
All of a sudden you can't control how you think, and you can't control how you act, and you can't control the
you just
fact
feel
that,
them.
a simple situation that might be easy for everybody else to figure out is this huge, like, literally a mountain standing in front of you, and people are telling you there's Mount Everest, just climb to the fucking top already.
Yeah,
And
and you're
you're
wearing
like, what the
sandals.
fuck? I can't do that.
They're like, here's some sandals. Now climb that goddamn mountain. It's like
Yeah,
I'm not wearing anything but sandals. That's weird. I'm
yeah.
probably gonna get arrested. But um, what was I gonna say? I mean, but there's ways of explaining it to people so that they can understand, and that's something that I am pretty good at this point. Like, there's my flu analogy, the psychological effects of flu. You're tired, you
Hmm.
want to tell your boss where to stick it. Finally, it's like today's gonna be the day, and you're just like, why do I feel like ass? Why do I hate everything? Why am I tired? Why can't I get out of bed? It's the same damn thing. That fatigue, that
Hmm.
moodiness, like that's the same as depression. I mean, it's very similar. When I come down with the flu at first, I'm like, oh god,
Imagine having a flu 24/7, except you don't have all of the snot. And
right,
I mean, not all the time, but
right. And unless you cry and have a breakdown, and then there's
right. And then there is. So
yeah.
it's like
But
it's like having a flu 24/7.
another thing another example that I like to use to really drive the point home is it feels like you've been eviscerated and you're just standing there with your organs in your hands. And I'm squeamish, so this isn't fun for me. But like you're just standing there with like your organs in your hands, like, hey, not a doctor, can someone help me put this back in? And everybody's just like, no, you do it. Like, no, it feels like you're just standing there with all of your insides out.
Hmm.
One thing that Linehan likes to say, as far as borderlines, is we're emotional burn victims. Like, go to a burn victim in a hospital, even the lightest touch can cause the most excruciating pain because their skin's been burned off.
Yeah.
With a borderline, like the slightest little thing, it's like, no, you can't have a cookie, and it's like, I want to die, dude. Those cookies look good. Like, am I a piece of shit because I can't have a cookie? Like that's what it's like. It's like
Hmm.
just the merest little tap, and it's like I'm over the edge now. Good, okay. And all I did was tear a piece of paper that I didn't mean to tear. Like I tore my dollar, and it didn't even go in half, and I'm just it's the end of the world. Why?
Hmm.
I haven't gotten that bad in a long time. But I remember, if I think about it, it's like yesterday, like, God, for a while, I couldn't watch any movies because any sort of content just reminded me of something and I'd be done.
Hmm.
I'd stopped listening to music at one point because it was just, the themes and anything like lyrically, I'm just like, I relate to that too much. It's too much. And it physically hurts. It's like
Hmm.
getting dumped, like love of your life just like cheats on you and dumps you. And how do you feel? That's what it's like. And everyone experiences that. That's everyone. But if it doesn't stop and you haven't been dumped, you start to kind of think, oh, what's and like with borderline, it's not just that. It's like you're losing your damn mind. It's like for me, I can't like I can know something from the bottom of my heart. I'm a very logical, rational person, but if my emotions disagree with that, like I can like every once in a while, and this is a paranoia thing too. Um, if I haven't talked to somebody that I like, if I spend a lot of days with somebody in a row and then I don't talk to them for a couple days, they hate me. They
Hmm.
just hate me. And I'm going over everything in my head like, okay, you didn't say anything stupid. And if you did say anything stupid, it wasn't anything big enough that they'd hate you.
Hmm.
Person loves you. You hung out Thursday, you know, and it doesn't matter because I'm just like, well, I mean, what if I said something without thinking about it and they took it the wrong way? And they should because I suck. And, and all that doesn't even, that's not reasonable. It doesn't
It's
make any
kind of like
sense
you're
with
sitting
that front.
there, you're sitting there telling yourself that fish can fly, and even though you know and you can see that fish obviously cannot fly and do not have wings, if you
If you
tell
judge a
yourself
fish on its
enough,
ability to fly or climb a tree,
yeah.
then it's going to live its entire life thinking it's stupid and can't do anything.
Mm,
And it's like, I haven't been able to do school. I haven't been able to hold a job. I'm holding a job right now. I'm figuring out what I want to do for school. But, for a really long time, I couldn't. And I mean, there's always the possibility that I might go back there, but I'm sure as hell going to pull myself back out. But,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's rough, and people just don't, they can't fathom it. And it's like, especially when you do like crazy stuff and like you can't control it, and then all of a sudden you're just like, you have this mess in your hands that you caused and you didn't mean to, but you totally did that. You totally did that. That was so you. And it's like, you didn't mean to, but you're like, well, now what do I do? Because everyone thinks I'm insane and or a bitch, and they have every reason to think that. They have every right to think that because I did that. But and then you're just like, am I going nuts? Am I worth anyone's time? Like, should I have myself committed? Am I a danger to people?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even just emotionally, like I've caused people emotional pain, and I'm like, maybe I should just be put away. And I'm so empathetic, and they talk about borderlines having a problem with empathy, but I can't speak for every borderline because, like I said, I'm a very atypical borderline, but my empathy level is over 9,000 at least.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't watch gore because I get sympathy pains. I can't watch a guy get kicked in the balls without having sympathy pains. I don't even have balls. Well, I do, but they're metaphorical. I don't know what it's like to get kicked in the balls, but somebody described it to me once, and now when I see that, I feel it, and it upsets me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just super empathetic, and it sucks because I have caused issues for other people with my behavior, and that's another reason why I was just like, the buck stops here. I can't do this because I need to start taking responsibility. And honestly, like, things really started picking up the day that I was just like, I'm going to start admitting when I'm wrong. And now, you know what? I love admitting when I'm wrong because people get really self-righteous about it. They're like, you're wrong. And I'm like, I'm wrong. Oh my God, you've never been wrong. But that's something that I did
Mm-hmm.
because, again, I really felt that I was well within my rights to act that way most of the time. And I started having to call myself out, which required me to admit when I'm wrong. So now
Yeah,
I call myself out and I can explain things, and it's cool. It's really good because I'm making a lot of progress.
which is great. And unfortunately, we're probably far away from most. I think it's. I don't want to say most because I don't want to like generalize it, but a good number of people with borderline are not willing to face the reality that they might be wrong.
Right, and it's the willingness that will get you better.
Yes,
Like, that's the
and
thing. It sucks. Like, I've been there. Like, I didn't want to admit it. Everything was everyone else's fault.
mm-hmm,
And you know what? Some of it was. Some of it was very much other people's faults. But I I didn't take responsibility for my own shit. And that caused a lot of problems for other people and for me.
mm-hmm,
And, causing other people problems is causing me problems. Like, that's the same thing to me
yeah,
because I care. And, like, that's really the thing. And honestly, like, just the honesty that I've allowed myself has made me, and, like, my process of recovery has just made me a much better person.
mm-hmm,
Because I had the willingness, I said, I don't want to feel this pain anymore. I'm causing this, so I'm going to stop it. Start the beef, you squash the beef. Right, Grady? You do that. Grady says, yeah. He says, yeah. And, that's just, it's personal responsibility. And,
mm-hmm,
like, there's a fine line between, okay, you need to understand that I have a mental illness, but if a person is to understand that and be understanding, and for me to expect that, they, like, should likewise be able to expect me to take responsibility.
yes.
Because you can't just be like, nope, I get to do whatever I want because I'm nuts. No, that's not cool. And
No,
it's
it
both.
doesn't
It's a
work
two-way
that way.
street.
Part of getting better is admitting what you are doing wrong in order to better facilitate good communication and to understand why certain things go wrong. Because,
Yeah,
like, if you are the one causing the problems, then, telling other people off isn't going to fix the problem. You're going to keep doing it.
Mm.
And it's only through understanding what we're doing wrong
Right, and it's only a
that we
matter
know
of
how to
time,
fix it.
really, before you burn that bridge a little too much, and then you
Yep.
gotta pick those pieces up because, or I mean, I think that's one thing that causes so many suicides with borderlines, because we do make that path of hellfire, and then it's like, well, I did this, so, and then there's the low feelings of self-worth,
Mm.
and the fact that you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, who the hell are you? Like, I have very, very much not gotten over my identity problems, and I'm just like, I don't know what I want or who I am or what defines me, and that sucks.
Mm.
And when you cause all those problems and you have all those symptoms, it kind of makes sense that you would think that you deserve to die. I mean, Linehan herself said that people with borderline personality disorder have pretty reasonable reasons
To think
to
that way.
to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it says it in that book that you have. Perfectly good reason to want to die, and you don't take it the wrong way. It makes sense. Like, it does, because when you feel that way, when you feel that amount of guilt, and it's not guilt, it's shame. The difference there is shame is down to your core, and guilt is what you did. Like,
Yeah.
if you call someone a bad name and they get upset and you didn't mean to, you can either say, "Oh man, I'm sorry I did that," or you can be like, "I'm a fucking piece of shit and I should die." And shame is the latter. Guilt's the first one. And that's the thing with borderline, like, you just feel this feeling of shame without having done anything. Just, I'm not worth anything. Okay. No, you're worth something.
I think
Like, just
that's true of most of the illnesses. Because
right, and it is.
like mental health is so built on this culture of shame and guilt and what we should feel and what we shouldn't feel, and that's where the self-esteem issues really get a lot of us, because we're so shameful about who we are and what
Right.
we want, and in some cases we really, it would be wonderful if we could just leave all that shit behind,
Mm,
because it's not, you're wasting such valuable time on, a lot of the times, on feelings that you shouldn't even be thinking.
right. Um, Now to wrap this up, unless you have more, but I really want to touch on discussing relationships right now, because that's a really big thing for borderlines. Me especially. No, not me especially, but me specifically. Yes, that impacts me.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, like, and there's a couple books out there to help people who are a significant other or family member of someone with borderline personality disorder. Now let me tell you about those books, because this is important. Now listen. There is a book called Stop Walking on Eggshells, and
Yeah,
it
I've heard of that one.
gives some advice, and I'm sure it helps in some cases. Um, I know that they tell you if you have borderline personality disorder and you are not, like, considered recovered, like, completely, like, you're not going to go in remission, you're done, you're good, and it's still not normal, but then you can read the book after you've gotten through treatment. If you read the book and you haven't gone through treatment, you're going to get suicidal, because it's brutal. And I haven't read the book, but I've talked to people that have. My ex-boyfriend read it, and kind of the gist that I got is it's like 50-50, you're staying or you're leaving. And the gist I also got, and I could be wrong here, like I said, I haven't actually read it, it's kind of encouraging you to end the relationship because these people are nuts and you should set boundaries if they don't want to follow your boundaries. Well, bye.
Really?
And that's shitty. And like I said, I don't know. It's just kind of what I've gathered from talking to different people. Now, that you can get at Barnes & Noble. And this is my favorite part. The one you can't get at Barnes & Noble, independent press. This dude is like just, like you can get it on Amazon. It's real cheap. It's got it's just green, and then it's got letters on it. It doesn't even have pictures or graphics or anything. It's called When Hope Is Not Enough by Bon Dobbs, and he's a genius. What happened to Bon Dobbs is his wife was diagnosed with borderline, and then his daughter. And he
Oh,
went, as I am sure you can imagine, this guy went through hell. He read Stop Walking on Eggshells, and he just kind of like, this isn't this isn't how you treat these people. This isn't what they need. Like, this is what they're most afraid of in the entire world. This is why they're this way. Like, what are you doing? So
hmm
he wrote this book for people that are staying and have decided that they're staying because it's doable. Like, you don't have to give up. Like, our worst fear is abandonment, and that's the root cause of most of our behaviors. And you're gonna abandon us because we're acting weird? No. You made a commitment, you sit your ass down and you work. That's
hmm
what you do. That's what a relationship is. And that was his daughter. You can't just leave your daughter. It's ridiculous, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's one thing when it comes to like relationships, like boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, or things like that, but to cut off a child or a parent, I mean, I mean,
no.
unless I mean, to be fair, I am going to put in the caveat that that there are times where cutting off a parent or cutting off a child or cutting off a family member is better for your mental
Sometimes you
health.
do have to because borderlines,
Yeah,
sometimes they get violent. I never have. I am not a violent person.
but I think you really need to like be sure when you do it.
Right, because breaking up with a borderline is rocket science. It really is. Like, I'm not being sarcastic. But, like, it's very complicated. And
hmm
especially, like, if you're breaking up with them because they're not doing too well, you are in for some shit, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
you thought you heard your phone ring before, damn. And that's speaking from experience. I've been that person.
hmm
But, like, the thing is, like, when you make a commitment to somebody that's not related to you, like when you
hmm
marry someone, you say in sickness and in health. Again, how come mental illness is not considered one of those sicknesses? Till death
Yeah.
do us apart. You know, like that's a commitment. You sit the fuck down, you shut the fuck up, and you follow through. Like, that's just my personal thing. Like, I am not saying definitively that should be how everyone thinks. That's how I feel, and that's how Von Dabs felt. And there are things you can do. And he's got a website. It's called anythingtostopthepain.com. And he keeps up a blog, not super regularly, but the last thing that I read that he put on there was explaining that a lot of the issues with communicating with a borderline is very much like a translation issue because you're speaking two completely different languages.
hmm
A lot of people think I'm really weird, and I am, because and I'm fine with that, but I just don't. I am not on the same wavelength as most people. And Emmy
hmm
knows this very well. I don't think the
Yeah.
same way. And, like, personality disorder territory in a lot of ways.
hmm
But really, what you need to do is just figure it like, what do you do when you're in a foreign country and you don't speak the language and when you want to know what's up with other people? And there's, like, cultural differences and stuff. It's the same damn thing. Because, again, one of the criteria, the basic criteria for just basic personality disorder is it's not accepted in your society or culture, like your behavior.
hmm
Like, some of my behavior is weird here, and it would be fine in Japan, and seriously. But
So, borderline in other countries might be
yeah,
diagnosed differently. I hadn't even thought about that.
yeah,
Like,
because it's cultural norms,
wow.
and yeah, like for me, like it's very difficult for me to communicate with a significant other when I'm dysregulated because I'm saying words that mean something to me that doesn't mean the same thing to anyone, and it's confusing, and that's kind of why I had to come up with ways to explain myself, like, hey, this is what I meant by this, and
hmm
this is what's going on, and I just really need you to understand. And another thing that Bondab says is you need to take context over content. It's not the words, it's what it means, like you got to figure out where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, so relationships, those are good books for that. But yeah, seriously, like it's a thing. These guys. But I have to wrap this up. It's
Yeah.
been an hour, and
I don't really have anything else to, because it's one of those things where it's like, okay, let's give the basic definition and then let's see what
it's
somebody
not.
with it
No, I could go all
really.
day on this.
Yeah.
We could have like 3 episodes about BPD, and I would just never stop talking.
Well, and that's the thing with all of these illnesses. There's like so many different ways that we can continue to talk about each one, but we have to figure out like how much information is helpful and how much information is just getting into overload.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of a fine line that we
That we flirt with a lot.
on Weekly and Glut. Yes, we do. I mean, we get
A
up
little
on the
bit,
girls.
but well, yeah. But you know, of course, for anybody else that's borderline, we'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
And
Ask us some questions.
I am working on currently. I have it mostly laid out. I just need to actually get the rest of the buttons put together and start putting the pages together. But we are going to have a website where we will give you the links to websites, to books, to blogs, to videos, all of that kind of stuff. So we'll have an area in the resource section that specifically for some of the stuff we talk about on here. You can go and look it up.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to keep watching the episode like 50 million times trying to figure out like who's this author?
Right.
So I am working on that, and hopefully we'll be done within the next 2 weeks. Because I'll admit, I sometimes get lazy.
Yeah, you got your own stuff going on. Yeah, I mean, cool. And let me know because got resources out the ass. So.
Yes, I know, and it'll be good to get a lot of those resources there. Some of if you want to follow this page or this particular YouTube channel into my playlist, I actually have a couple of documentaries and comedy sketches and things like that are specifically delve into mental illness. A particularly good one I liked, and this is about bipolar, so we should have mentioned it last week, but Stephen Fry has a I mean, I'm sure most people know who Stephen Fry is. He's a comedian, he's an actor. He worked with Hugh Laurie, which is the guy that played House on the TV show House. They were a comedy act out in England, and he was at one of the heights of his career, is doing very, very well, and then all of a sudden their show was just about to launch and he disappeared, and he just packed up his stuff and he just left England. And now he has a documentary out. I forget what it's called, but it's on my playlist for weekly Inkblot stuff, that he specifically talks about what it was like to go through the manic periods and the depressive periods and the times of being suicidal, and what it meant to have it kind of destroying his life without him feeling like he had any real control at the time. Yeah. And I think it's extremely powerful.
I'm sure.
And it's very good. He gives you a lot of very vivid and detailed descriptions. It might be a little hard to watch for some people, but it's a really good one. And so when we get the website up, like, these kind of things will be right at your disposal. And I think next week we will probably be talking about ADHD or ADD. I have 2 people. Hopefully Amaya is free for it. We might be at a different time this week. I will let you know if we are, because I have one person with ADD and one person in my life with ADHD. And believe it or not, they are actually different.
Oh yeah.
When you're talking about what it's like to be ADD versus ADHD, there is a very big significant difference, and what it means to your life and what it means to how you cope with things.
Just like bipolar versus borderline.
Yes, they're similar,
but they're not the same.
Yeah, they're similar, but they are not the same. And so I will hopefully be able to give you perspectives into both sides.
Mm.
So we'll have a slightly different panel next time,
You're
but
right.
hopefully, um, I feel like ADHD and ADD might be the one episode where we really start to steer off topic a little bit,
Right.
and we're gonna have to like right ourselves because
Mm.
it, at least for my husband, it really is true. You see the butterfly and you're lost.
Right.
So,
So that's next week.
that's what we will
So
deal with next week.
make sure you tune in.
And,
Same time, same place, same internet.
yes, and I am sure that this is not the last time we will be talking about Borderline.
Nope.
And but hopefully
Hopefully
this
this
is
was
at least the
informative.
beginning of.
Was it informative, Grady?
Yes.
Yes.
He said yes.
Actually,
Well, there we go.
Grady barely knows me.
So see you guys next time.
All right. Bye.